Feedback loops can be either negative or positive. Negative feedback brings the participants' views and the actual situation closer together. Positive feedback drives them further apart. In other words, negative feedback is self-correcting. It can go on forever, if there are no significant changes in external reality, it may eventually lead to an equilibrium where the participants' views come to correspond to the actual state of affairs. That is what's supposed to happen in financial markets. So equilibrium, which is the central case in economics, turns out to be a limiting case in my conceptual framework. By contrast, a positive feedback process is self-reinforcing. It can't go on forever because eventually the participants' views would become so far removed from objective reality that the participants would have to recognize them as unrealistic. Nor can the iterative process occur without any change in the actual state of affairs, because it's in the nature of positive feedback that it reinforces whatever tendency prevails in the real world. Instead of equilibrium, we are faced with a dynamic disequilibrium, or what may be described as far from equilibrium conditions. Usually, in far from equilibrium situations, the divergence between perceptions and reality leads to a climax which sets in motion a positive feedback process in the opposite direction. Such initially self-reinforcing but eventually self-defeating boom-bust processes or bubbles are characteristic of financial markets. But they can also be observed in other spheres. There, I call them fertile fallacies, interpretations of reality that are distorted, yet produce results which reinforce the distortion. I realize that this is all very abstract and difficult to follow. It would make it much easier if I gave some concrete examples, but you'll have to bear with me. I want to make a different point, and the fact that it's so difficult to follow abstract arguments helps me to make it. In dealing with subjects like reality or thinking or the relationship between thinking and reality, it's easy to get confused and formulate problems the wrong way. So, misinterpretations and misconceptions can play a very important role in human affairs. The recent financial crisis can be attributed to a mistaken interpretation of how financial markets work. I shall discuss that in the next lecture. In the third lecture, I shall discuss two fertile fallacies, the Enlightenment fallacy and the postmodern fallacy. These concrete examples will demonstrate how important misconceptions have been in the course of history. But for the rest of this lecture, I shall stay at the lofty heights of abstraction. I contend that situations that have thinking participants have a different structure from natural phenomena. The difference lies in the role of thinking. In a natural phenomena, thinking plays no causal role and serves only a cognitive function. In human affairs, thinking is part of the subject matter and serves both a cognitive and a manipulative function. The two functions can interfere with each other. The interference doesn't occur all the time. In everyday activities like driving a car or painting a house, The two functions actually complement each other. But when it occurs, it introduces an element of uncertainty which is absent from natural phenomena. The uncertainty manifests itself in both functions. The participants act on the basis of imperfect understanding, and the results of their actions will not correspond to their expectations. I call that the human uncertainty principle, and I consider it a key feature of human affairs. By contrast, in the case of natural phenomena, events unfold irrespective of the views held by the observers. The outside observer is engaged only in the cognitive function, and the phenomena provide a reliable criterion by which the truth of the observer's theories can be judged. So the outside observer can obtain knowledge. Based on that knowledge, nature can be successfully manipulated. There is a natural separation between the cognitive and manipulative function, and due to that separation, both functions can serve their purpose better than in the human sphere. At this point, I need to emphasize that reflexivity is not the only source of uncertainty in human affairs. Yes, reflexivity does introduce an element of uncertainty, both into the participants' views and the actual course of events, but other factors may also have the same effect. For instance, the fact that participants can't know what the other participants know is something quite different from reflexivity, yet it's a source of uncertainty. The fact that different participants have different interests, some of which may be in conflict with each other, is another source of uncertainty. Moreover, each individual participant may be guided by a multiplicity of values which may not be self-consistent, as Isaiah Berlin has pointed out. The uncertainties created by these factors are likely to be even more extensive than those generated by reflexivity. I have lumped them all together, and when I speak of the human uncertainty principle, which is an even broader concept than reflexivity. The human uncertainty principle I am talking about is much more specific and stringent than the subjective skepticism that pervades Cartesian philosophy. It gives an objective reason to believe that our perceptions and expectations are, or at least may be, wrong.